Welcome to World Travel Made Easy with Itinerary Boss, the podcast for busy professionals who want to plan unforgettable trips without the stress. If you're craving adventure, relaxation, or cultural immersion, but feel overwhelmed where to start, this is the show for you. Each week, we dive into travel tips, expert strategies, and actionable advice to help you save time, money, and hassle while helping you design your dream trip. From group getaways to romantic escapes to adventure packed journeys and budget friendly tips, we cover it all. I'm Ross, your host and travel enthusiast, with over a decade of experience balancing a demanding career while also planning trips to over 25 cities in Europe, all over the US, Central America, the Caribbean, and beyond. I've mastered the art of stress free planning, and I'm here to help you do the same. If you love what you hear, don't forget to follow the show, leave us a review, as well as share it with a fellow traveler. I want to make your next adventure the easiest and most memorable yet. Now, on with the show. Welcome back to another episode of World Travel Made Easy with Itinerary Boss. I'm your host, Ross, and I'm excited to have Sylvia Pinho on the podcast this week. Sylvia is going to really talk to you about how to travel affordably as well as work on the go. So, from what you can expect to get from this episode is how to be able to do that, find good deals. If you're a remote worker and you want to start to travel more, I think she's going to provide some really good insights. So excited to have her on the show. How's it going today?
It's going good. I mean, it's more of the end of the day for me, I guess. It's early for you, right?
Yeah, it's right at lunchtime. And with that being said, where are you located?
I'm located in Portugal, so kind of I guess you could call it a prime space for for traveling because not wanting to spoil a lot, you can get flights for like 13 euros each way, to like Spain to the beach and stuff. I did that last year, yeah.
That's awesome. Where about in Portugal?
Just close to Lisbon, so just south of the river.
Okay, very
So
cool.
close enough that I can go there like tonight if I want to. Far enough to where it's not crazy expensive and crazy crowded.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. We were actually in Portugal September 2023, and we flew
Oh, nice.
over because, like you said, it's a pretty being on cue with the podcast being being pretty affordable from coming from the States for flights. It's
Yeah.
obviously one of the closest to get to, and there's some good direct flights. So yeah, we were there. We got to visit the Azores Islands first,
Oh, which
Porto.
one?
We did São Miguel.
Oh, yeah, I think you mentioned last week. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
really liked the islands. Porto I liked as well, but I only spent like probably 24 hours there. So I
yeah,
need to go back.
we were there for 3 days, and unfortunately,
Oh,
my fiance had food poisoning on our way from the
mm,
Azores there, so we didn't get to experience as much. But that we really liked it, and definitely want to go back. And then we did the Algarve for 3 days,
nice.
and then did Lisbon for 3 days. So yeah,
Oh,
it's
wow.
yeah, we
Like
we
a
absolutely loved it.
1, 2 week long kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, nice 2 week long vacation, which it was awesome. And
Yeah,
yeah,
I
for
guess when you're coming from the States, it's different, right? Like, because I guess from what I hear, like, and I know I haven't been to the States because of that. Uh, Going from either there to here to Europe, wherever you end up landing, or from here to there, it's like that's the bulk of your expense.
Mhm.
And then again, like you come here and you see flights for 15 euros and stuff like that. Oftentimes it's cheaper than the train, which is crazy. Like to give you an example, we went to the beach in the coast of Spain, so like the Mediterranean. Um, and it was cheaper. Me and my husband, we both went there for a short week, and that's how often I typically do my trips, like 3 day long, so I can do more of them. And we went there, and it was cheaper to go to Spain than it was to go to the south to the Algarve.
Wow.
Like, Because a train down south is like 20 something, and we pay for one way, and we paid 20 something for both ways. It
Yeah,
just doesn't make sense.
yeah, no, I think that's the beauty of when we do come to Europe is once we're over, I think if people who have not been don't realize it's very affordable once you get there. If you get to maybe Barcelona, if you get to Lisbon and you want to do a quick day trip to Rome, you can, right?
Hmm.
It's very accessible and
Surprisingly, I
easy.
haven't been to Rome. I was just looking at it earlier today.
That's funny. But yeah, it's you can get over there. The train system is definitely easy. It's accessible. And yeah,
I
I mean
think they're
the bulk of the price getting from the States over is that's usually what it is. If you're using credit cards or points and miles, there's ways to definitely do that where that are cheaper, where you can do it for free,
yeah,
almost. But yeah,
for free.
that's
You got to teach me that one.
yeah, that's some good content that's coming out, and stuff that I like to
Yeah,
share and have some good episodes and interviews coming up around that. So yeah, no, I think I'm excited to hear from you because you live over there. So hearing kind of the ins and outs, we
yeah.
come over a little bit, but helping my audience learn a little bit more. So yeah, I would love to just learn more about, how do you get started traveling? Was it from a younger age or how'd that all start?
Honestly, it was kind of both, but yeah, I did get used to travel when I was younger. My parents took me to Disneyland and Paris quite often, like I guess every like 2 years we would go. So, you know, planes are not a foreign thing to me. Airports, I quite enjoy airports. I don't know if I'm alone in this because I know my husband hates them, but I just feel at home and like more productive. When I'm traveling solo with just my laptop and getting work done, I don't know what it is, but sitting at an airport, I get so much done. So it's never like that wasted time for me. But yeah, I got used to traveling a lot. It was mostly Paris. Then we went once to Madrid, which is literally a 1 hour flight from Lisbon. It almost doesn't make sense to fly there. And we went to London as well. And then I turned 18. We actually the last trip I did with my parents before I turned 18 was to London, and I was so in love with the city that I wanted to lose my ID and stay there. Like so I couldn't come back home. I literally told my parents that. And then long story short, I ended up applying to a university there and ended up giving up on that idea. But between that entire thing, I ended up to visit the uni, visit London, and that was actually my first solo trip. It was I was freshly 18. Uh, so that one was super, probably like what catapulted me into the the little bug of travel, if you will. I I just loved the entire experience. I stayed at a hostel, so like literally that started everything because I 99.9% of the times I stay at hostels now. And I know you talked about that in some podcasts as well. But yeah, I feel like that's where it all kind of started.
That's very cool. I think it's a lot of the times when I talk to guests, friends, people that I know who travel, it's, their parents took them somewhere, they got to go experience. A lot of the times it's not like going from the States over to Australia or to Europe. It's
Right.
more within the States or maybe down to the Caribbean for you,
Canada,
right?
Mexico.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And like for you, you were going to countries that were nearby, but it's cool to hear that's how it started. And then, yeah, a lot of guests, I think when you're people start to stay in hostels, and I always recommend, right, if you have not traveled, like, and that's where over in Europe, there's definitely a different perception in the States when people think of hostels. They're like, oh, I watched the movie Hostel once, and that,
See,
and
I heard of that for the first time like a couple months ago. Like
yeah,
I've been staying at hostels for 10 years and
yeah,
I mean, I
yeah.
watched the trailer. I didn't want to watch the
No,
whole thing.
no, I watched a little bit of it and I was like, this is way too just exaggerated. But yeah, I think people watch that and they just haven't been. And luckily I got to stay in one when we studied abroad. So had that
Hmm.
exposure early on and was like, this is fine. And if you want to stay, if you're earlier in your life where you're like, hey, I'm cool to stay in, 32 person hostels in a room, that's totally fine. But if
I don't
you're
think I've ever been to a room that big. I think my cap was like 16,
I think
which
we stayed in a
still a lot.
32 over one night and we were like, yeah, never. But
Hopefully the bathroom was big, like had a
it
lot of
was it was
stalls.
actually in the hallway. So it like you had to walk across and there was a
Yeah,
communal for
but I
guys.
mean, I
Yeah.
think that's the biggest thing is how many stalls because I once stayed at a hostel. I think it was also 16 around there, and it had one toilet and one shower.
Wow.
People would line up.
That's
Like,
crazy. Yeah.
yeah,
But
but the first one I stayed had like a row of them, so that was like super efficient. Like
yeah.
nobody had to wait.
Yeah. No, that makes
But
that's I was gonna say it for people, I mean it's you don't take that as the perspective. Usually you get to decide when you pick, do you want to stay in a two
yeah,
person? Is it four? Is it eight? So the experience I think is nice, but like you were saying, if you're traveling solo too, usually the hostel will have they have mapped out experiences. They have a common area. So like they do that and they cater to that, right? The needs of people who are traveling and want that experience. So, but we just don't really have them in the States. So I think people's
really.
perception, there's some, but there's not, it's not like when you're traveling to Europe
It's
or all over the world.
probably is it like more closer to the vibes of the movie, like more rundown places
Yeah.
and scary things.
Motels.
Yeah, I saw a YouTuber, I think, do a video about I think it was a hostel. It had bunk beds, so I immediately
Yeah.
equate that to hostels, and it didn't look good. I think it was in Las Vegas. It yeah, it
Yeah.
wasn't appealing.
I don't know if I would stay in a hostel in Las Vegas.
Yeah, it was cheap though. It was normal hostel rates, and that's another thing. Like because I like to travel on a budget, I hostels just make it so easy. I immediately just go, okay, yeah, it's 20 euros a night because everywhere seems to be like more or less that or
Hmm.
15, 25, 20. It's around that. A couple weeks to a month ago, I stayed at one in Prague that I think starts at 8 euros a night, which
That's
was
awesome.
amazing. And it wasn't bad. I booked an 8-person room and I was super surprised that it was split in two. So it was essentially two 4 people rooms with their own bathroom. And it had a pool, an
Oh,
inside
nice.
pool, and a sauna.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
that shouldn't be that cheap, but
Yeah.
that was a find.
That's cool. Yeah. Where in Prague was it? Do you remember?
It was more towards the north. So it wasn't, there's the city center and then
Hmm.
there's the river that goes around. It was in that like kind of peninsula, I guess.
Okay.
Uh, I'm not very good with geography of
Yeah.
places.
I honestly, I
But
was
it
asking.
was like 20 minutes to the center with a direct like train
Okay.
tram line. So
And
it
that's,
was well located.
yeah. And if you're traveling, if you're trying to travel on a budget or affordably, sometimes, right? That's what's important to you. Just, I think a
Yeah.
lot of people who haven't been over or have been over maybe once or twice, like they haven't had the experience on some of the train systems, and that's one of the biggest things that it's just. And I actually had this is a wild stat that one of my former guests, Paul Comfort, he interviews CEOs for public transportation around the world, and he's been an executive at a big transportation company. So he has a YouTube show that he goes all over the world to see the behind the scenes of like, how do I get there? What goes on behind the scenes? Like what? And
Mm-hmm.
he said 90% of China uses their public transportation, 40 to 50% of Europe does, 5% of the US does. So, like, I think when people are going over, they haven't used it, and it is very efficient. It's easy to get places. And that's just
I
like the way to go.
I will say from personal experience, I think Portugal is probably the worst of them all. At least if you go like to the suburbs, like to the area of where I live, to get to the center of Lisbon, you
Yeah.
kind of need a car to at least get you to the train station
Hmm.
because the bus system is not very well connected. But other than that, if you
Yeah.
stay inside Lisbon, you're good. Um, most times.
We stayed in Barra Alta, and that was
Oh yeah, that
it's
yeah.
central, and I mean it. I think the
If you have
toughest.
sneakers, you can walk.
We walked everywhere. I think the toughest thing we did was try to get a cab somewhere that was like
Oh no.
5 miles away, and it was like 50 minutes or like 3 miles away, and it was like so that was the only time we did that. The rest of the times we just walked.
Yeah, no, those are kind of a dud, a scam,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. But I do wanna get back to. I think you talked about London was like when you first started traveling, had a special place in your heart. Like I think that's a good starting destination for a lot of people, and it's a
Hmm.
sought out destination from people in the US because
It's
it's a
well
big city.
connected.
Yeah, well connected, easy to get to. We went there in 2018 with a for 4 days with a group of six of us, and we
Hmm.
had a good time and had plenty of layovers there. So would love to just hear kind of your perspective on why that is.
Why, like,
Why it
why
has a special
London?
place in
Why did
his
it?
yeah, why it has a special place in your heart.
Honestly, it's hard to put it into words. I've tried it before. I just, as silly as it sounds, I like the vibes. I don't know. I like the buildings. They're not like Paris tall and Paris huge. It feels like a small town in a big city, if that makes sense. And I mean, they speak English, so that makes it easier for both me and I guess Americans as well. Um, I don't know. I couldn't tell you more than that. It's just a feeling. I feel at home there, and I felt that since I first stepped foot in it. Like, yeah, it's unexplainable. You gotta go there.
I was gonna say people just got to go. You got to find out for yourself.
Yeah,
That is
sorry.
the yeah. I we went. We liked it. We did a lot of the tourist stuff, and it was just a lot of the people who I went with had never been to Europe, and that was their first time.
Surprisingly, I'm not a fan of the tourist stuff. Last time I went was in November, and I didn't even see the Big Ben.
Yeah,
Like, nor the river. I don't even think I saw the river. But like the London Eye and stuff like that. I also went to Madame Tussauds a couple times. I think that's kind of like overhyped, I guess. I kind of like the more not hidden, but like I like traveling more like a local. You know,
Mhm.
I like just walking the streets, like sitting at a place and people watching for a couple of hours. That's my vibe of travel. I know that's everyone has their own tastes, but honestly, I've even went with a couple friends and by that time I had already been to London and to most attractions at least once or twice. So I said, "You guys go. I sit at a coffee shop with my laptop and get some work done." And that's like how I'm happy traveling.
Yeah, yeah,
As
no,
weird
it
as it
was.
sounds.
Yeah, no, I think over time, like we went there in 2018, and definitely that was people's first time, and the tourism stuff was fun. But over the years, I'm the same way. It's really just doing the more local, traveling like a local, feeling that experience,
Yeah.
and then not just not being around the huge crowds. I think that's also
Yeah.
nice and enjoying the destination.
Yeah. For example, like last month I went to Prague again, and like there's this clock. You've probably heard of it.
Hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Like people stand like in a massive group in front of it, and when it starts the show, I could barely call it a show. It's so underwhelming, but it's like immediately you just see dozens of phones raising up.
Yeah.
And it's just, I mean, I was there and I recorded it, but then I was underwhelmed. And then I saw it for a second time from an outsider's perspective. And I was like, that's just ridiculous. It's overhyped.
Hmm.
I'm sorry if you're one of the super touristy people, but for me, what I typically like to do while I travel, apart from obviously taking my laptop, finding a good place to work at, which again, it's not like a vacation, but it is a different scenery, and that's what I like. But I like to just Google like free things to do in XYZ. And then I will tag all those places in a map. Like in Google Maps, you can do like folders or
Hmm.
I don't know what they call it, like groups. And I have one per city. And then I just go with whatever I want. Especially if I'm solo traveling, I'm like, I don't plan anything. I get there, okay, what's closest or what do I feel like doing? And I will go there. And I will either sit at a park, draw something, sit at a coffee shop, get some work done. And it may sound boring for some people, but that's most of what I do.
Yeah, no, well, it sounds like you like to work while you're traveling, so I'd love to just hear,
Yeah.
how do you manage that? Do you because I think a lot of people when they travel, they think, I'm on vacation, like I want to get out of my routine. Is there any sort of like routine or best practices, even when you're finding a coffee shop and different tools just to make sure you're staying productive?
I don't really have a per se plan for that. I have tried different things. So once I stayed in Bordeaux in the south of France, and I actually found a hostel that had a co-working space at the ground level. That was amazing. I mean, I just had to go down there. It had a co-working space, it had a cafe, so you could grab a coffee or whatever. You could heat your food. It was like everything contained. I still walked around the city, don't worry. I did leave my hostel, but it was just super nice vibes and it was well decorated and everything. And I know they had events as well, which is something I really enjoy about hostels. They oftentimes run events. Uh, that makes it good for solo travels or even
Hmm.
groups that want to just have fun. Um, but another thing I've done is there's this website slash app. It's croissant, however you want to say it,
How do
the
you,
French
yeah,
pastry.
okay, okay.
Um, and it like gives you like you pay a membership and you get access to every co-working space they have in the platform across different cities across the world. So I've had that membership before, and it's good to, okay, I'm in a new city.
Hmm.
What's the co-working spaces like? Oftentimes they will have, free coffee, events as well. I've been to some in Lisbon that have super cool community events, networking events. So I mean, apart from that, I just okay, yeah. It's a good coffee shop with a view of the street.
Yeah.
You can sit at a high chair
Yep.
overlooking the street. Yeah,
No,
that's oftentimes my criteria.
well, it's simple, but I think I wasn't aware of that app. That's pretty cool. So if you're in another city and you are like, saying I want to go work remotely, I think I haven't thought about that, the time difference because I'm just thinking, right, Eastern
Mm,
time, 6, 7 hours for people who may say, hey, you know what, I want to go over there, I want to work remotely, and I want to have good internet. Where can I go do that? And then also, if I am traveling solo, I'm traveling with two people versus a larger group, and we want to meet other people. I highly, hostels are great. You have those events.
yeah.
If you want to just, if you have points or reward programs and you want to stay at a hotel, but then you want that community feeling,
I was
that's
gonna
good to,
say, like, in that episode I listened to, you mentioned a lot about points for hotels, but there wasn't a lot about hostels, right?
yeah,
Or
not a
am
lot
I
about.
missing something?
No, yeah, not a lot about hostels. I'm not aware of
We
points
may need to
for
start one.
hostels. Yeah, no, that would be good. I think since they're so affordable, I think the main thing with hotels is like
Yeah,
how do you save money, and it's through points, through right the different spend you put on the different types of credit cards with the different
yeah.
reward thresholds. And
But I
then
mean,
that's
even if it was just like a free breakfast every now and then, that could be
yeah.
nice. I know it typically tends to be like, I don't know if you've flown Ryanair,
Hmm.
but it tends to be like that. Like you pay
Yeah.
for every single add-on
Yeah. You want
in
water? three
hostels.
dollars or three
You want
euro.
water, you want breakfast, you want a towel, you want. I've seen some charge for linen for your bed, and that's where I draw the line.
Yeah.
I can bring a towel. I'm not gonna bring sheets.
Yeah. Well, do they have it in, I think in Hostel World, you might be able to filter that. I haven't used it in a little
Maybe
bit.
I mostly use Booking, so
Okay.
I'm not too familiar, but I did screenshot your show notes page so I could check out
There you go.
every single website you listed. So
Yeah. I
yeah,
would say Hostel World, I'm pretty sure you can filter it down to, I haven't used it in,
maybe.
I mean, I used it in that episode, but I haven't used it as frequently. And yeah, I think you can filter down. Usually I just go, what's 8.5 stars or above? And then from there, figure out kind of cost and see what lands within budget. That's usually going to be.
Yeah.
But if you're specifics where you're like, hey, I don't want to get upcharged for a towel or soap or whatever, whatever that is, I'm sure nowadays they have
Yeah.
so many filters that they've figured
I
out.
used to be bothered about the towel thing. Now I just have a small one that I take with me. So sometimes I don't even check if I need it. I just throw it in. And I do travel with only a backpack.
Oh, nice.
So I'm able to fit everything in there.
Is
No
there a
problem.
specific backpack you like or that you recommend that people use if they just want like a weekender type backpack to bring their laptop in that?
I wish I had one, and that's one of my goals is to find that backpack that fits every criteria. Honestly, I just bought one from Timo that was €2
Oh,
over
wow.
a year ago, and it still hasn't broken. But it's one of those, the ones that are made to fill every single like space that has in the low cost airlines.
Yeah.
So it's one of those that are basically a not a square, but like a
Yep.
rectangles, but like
Yeah.
that fit every corner that have no wasted space. I I honestly love it. I want to find a higher end version of it. I
Hmm.
just haven't found the need because this one's still rocking.
Yeah. No, that's good.
But
Was gonna say I
yeah.
shared a holiday gift guide over the holidays,
Hmm.
and I'll probably relaunch something for 2025 that highlights just products that I've used or that friends or family have used that focuses in on, over the years I've tried these. These are my favorites. But yeah, the
Yeah.
backpack is if you want something where you can have everything, right? Have a weekender backpack, but if you're also just trying to bring, like if you're going on for example, let's just say a 2 week trip from the States, and we don't like to bring checked bags just because it's huge pain.
Mm-hmm.
Bring just a carry on, and if you can get a backpack that can fit your laptop, as much clothes as a duffel bag. See, I put
Yeah.
together something like that, but that's for longer trips for that one. But for weekend trips, it's nice to
Yeah.
have that option.
Yeah. I did eventually find a good, at least to my standards, carry on. It was still a cheap one. It was from Primark, but I did find my ideal carry on. But then airlines started cutting it, and
Yeah.
now you can only take for free at least. And I like to travel on a budget, so you can only take a backpack. And like I said, I do like to travel like 3 days,
Hmm.
because my kind of goal, at least in my mind, is like to travel once a month.
Hmm.
That's like my happy place, and I do kind of budget for that. So maybe we can go kind of into that as well. Like, I budget about 200 euros every month for travel. And to some that may look like a waste of money and a lot, but maybe if you're from the States, that's like nothing,
I was gonna say
because
that's
200 a month for travel, I don't know what you would get in the States.
probably
Um,
not even a plane ticket or a night at a
one
hotel or
way.
the Airbnb.
Yeah, but like for me, that's like almost like a game that I play with myself, like a fun little challenge.
Hmm.
So I don't know, I found loads of joy in that, in just finding good deals. And since I do work as a freelancer, I can just see, I tend to use Skyscanner actually.
Hmm.
And I just select anytime, any place, everywhere, whatever. And wherever it tells me, if it's like under 50 euros for a round trip, I will probably book it if I don't have a trip booked for the next 30 days or something.
Hmm.
Uh, and then I typically find a hostel, so that's typically I either stay 1 or 2 nights, so that's 20 or 40 euros. So sometimes I even do it under 100.
That's pretty impressive.
I've done it under 100 once with my husband, so two people for three
Wow.
days. Not counting food, but I don't know if this is a popular or unpopular opinion, but I don't typically count food that much in my travel budget because at home I'm still eating.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're just
You may
substituting it.
go out more often when you're traveling, but I also like to stay at hostels or Airbnbs where I have access to a kitchen or at least a
Hmm.
microwave. So I do tend to go to the grocery store and just grab a frozen pizza or something. I admit I'm not probably the healthiest traveler, but I get my steps on
Yeah.
while I travel, so
You get
it's a
15.
compromise.
Yeah. I was going to say you get 15 to 25,000 steps. I feel like anytime you travel into a new city, you're just walking around and
Yeah.
you're exhausted by the end of the day. So you're
Yeah, then
burning
I'm
this.
like a week at home, like trying to get over pain ache,
Yep.
the pain ache, the leg ache. But
And
yeah.
then you talked about you're a freelancer, and when we talked first, you had mentioned being able to go on like paid trips for free or
Oh
versus paid.
yeah.
So, do you mind telling me a little bit more about that? I'm interested, and I think other people
Yeah,
might
of
be interested too.
course. I kind of got thrown into the UGC world kind of by accident. I think everything in my freelancer journey has been a happy accident.
Hmm.
I found like my way through, okay, let's try this. There's an opportunity. Let's try it. And through UGC, I've been in contact with many brands, and I mostly try to focus on either tech, pets, or travel because
Hmm.
those are like kind of my three biggest passions, like tech, also including gaming because I love gaming. Um, but last year, actually, it was a great example of this. I pitched a brand that was a kind of soap carrier slash built-in loofah. I don't know if you've seen any ads for it, but it was like you put the soap in, it's a silicone brush that acts as a loofah, but it's healthier or doesn't kill bacteria. It
Okay.
was a year ago, so it's fuzzy, but I pitched them and they were interested. And initially in my pitch, maybe it wasn't that clear, but I was offering to do a free video in exchange for a free product. Sometimes I do that. Other times I'm like, yeah, I do need to get paid. Other times I offer the first one for free. But they replied to me and they were like super interested. Okay, how much do you want? And I quoted them for, my base price that ends up being close to my typical travel budget. So they ended up covering the trip.
Nice.
Basically with recording a soap at my hotel room. It it was a I should have recorded behind the scenes because I literally propped my phone in one of those tissue holders that you get in the hotels, like in a ledge. It was it was balancing off the ledge so I could get a top down shot of me holding the soap. It was an adventure, let's say, a small adventure, but it covered the entire cost of the trip.
That's
And to
awesome.
me, that was like a challenge also to make more like that. Um, I've also partnered with hostels. I think I saw this somewhere. Maybe it was on Instagram, somewhere online, that if you have like a booking for a hostel or a hotel or whatever, just message them and let them know, hey, I'm coming between X and Y dates. I want to shoot some content during my travels. Like, what what should I highlight about your location or about other places nearby that I should visit and cover in my content? And I've just been doing that every time I travel. Sometimes I get ignored. Other times I get someone to bite, let's say.
Yeah.
And I've even done that previous to traveling.
Hmm.
So when I didn't have a booking, I would just, see a list of hostels or hotels. And actually, my trip to London, the hostel gave me the free accommodation for,
Oh, nice.
I stayed for 3 days. So, it would have been 40 euros. So it's not that much, but
Hey, saves you
any
money.
anything for free is good.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
goes to the next trip, I guess.
Yeah, that's
Rolls
cool.
over.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that I'm focusing in on, is for places that either we like to go or we're looking to go. And as I continue to build out my brand, is reaching
Yeah.
out to hotels. And just one trick, that, I'm doing and I've done in the past that I'm doing for our upcoming honeymoon is reaching out to the hotels that we're staying at, that we have, we're loyalty members. We have, right there, part of their membership rewards programs, have some of their
Yeah.
co-branded credit cards. So like using all of those tips and
You
just
already
crafting
have
a,
an in or a
yeah,
selling
exactly.
point.
Crafting a message of, hey, by the way, it's our honeymoon. Oh, also, by the way, we have this credit card. And oh, yeah, we booked this. And just reaching out and just telling them how excited we are.
Yeah.
But I like your idea of reaching out prior, and saying, "Hey, we're going to be also staying here. I have a travel company, would love to shoot some content. What?" And asking them what they want you to highlight because they may have different, things that
Yeah.
they may have just renovated. Like for example, we were down in Turks and Caicos for a trip, and the place we stayed at prior, they had just renovated the whole bar area, and we walked up, and it was amazing. So it was like, oh, that was something that
Yeah.
we could have I did highlight, but I could have highlighted. So just like little things like that where the hotel may be doing something new or there's
Yeah, they know
specific.
it best.
Exactly. So no, I love that
What's
tip.
the
That's helpful.
eye-catching thing? This one in London, actually, they were like a chain of hostels. So they asked me, okay, which one do you want to stay at? And I'm like, whichever one you want to promote more that you think is better in a video. They
Yeah.
were all pretty central, so I mean, I don't care.
Hmm.
And I had, in that case, already spent twice my budget on a ticket to an event. So
There you go.
I was trying to cut corners everywhere I could. So I was like, I'll stay anywhere. I'll record a video.
Hey,
I and that's another thing. While I do charge for my videos when I work with brands, I am totally cool with if I'm the one reaching out to them, I'm totally cool with giving one video to them for free. Maybe some people won't agree with that, and I get that, the people that don't agree, because as a freelancer, anyone that gives something for free or for cheap tends to bring down the value of others as well. But I only give stuff for free when I would pay for it.
yeah.
Anyway, and let's be honest, I would have recorded a video anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Well, if it's a brand too that you want to work with and you're trying to show like,
exactly.
hey, here's my work, like I'll do this. No, and then they're like, oh, okay, we like that. And then it gives you an excuse to take that video. You're now on their radar. And yeah,
Yeah,
and
and I've
then
gotten paid brand collabs
yeah,
after I've done a freebie for them.
yeah.
So
It,
they will appreciate it if it's like good work. If you just do a shitty thing,
yeah.
like
Then they're not going to pay you regardless. So
they
it's
won't return. But yeah, it's a chance to prove yourself, I guess.
yeah, yeah, you're getting your foot in the door, and the fact that they're responding, that's step one. Step two is doing that, and then step three is getting the brand deal. That's very cool. Very
Yeah,
cool.
and since this is for now kind of what I consider my side thing, because I mostly do social media management, so the more global thing,
Hmm.
these one-off videos, while they do take time planning and shooting and
Hmm.
editing, especially if you want to make it good so you
Yeah.
can get another one and another one. I don't know, video work is just something I love doing. So it almost doesn't feel like work.
Yeah.
And that's also like what makes me want to work so much while I travel is like I really enjoy what I do. So I'm like, why stop because I'm
Hmm.
traveling? Like I mostly travel to like, people watch and hear different languages and get out of the house because I sometimes joke about this. I'm a homebody. Like I stay at home the entire month and then there's a weekend where I go abroad and then I stay home for the rest of the month. So like I only leave my house to go to the airport mostly.
Yeah. You're saving up to for that
So
trip.
that's my monthly allowance of people interaction.
Yeah. No, I get it. Well, this has been really helpful. I think I got one last question just because it sounds like, you do a lot of different traveling, and it started when you went to London, but I think just understanding your experience, like how do you think it changes for people who are trying to start traveling? Like what perspective has it given you and how's it changed like your overall outlook on travel?
Can you ask that again? Can you rephrase that? I'm kind of confused.
Yeah, yeah. I think for, how do you feel like travel's changed your perspective?
I feel like it's mostly like just seeing different things, like for example, it gives you perspective. That's the biggest thing for me. Like for example, what I was telling you earlier, that I think Portugal is probably the worst in terms of public transport is
Hmm.
because I've been to London. I've been to even
Hmm.
smaller towns like Bordeaux, for example. May not be that small in terms of population, I don't know, but it's not Paris.
Yeah.
So the fact that travel, like trains and stuff like that, they're more frequent in a smaller town than they are in our capital, that's kind of weird to me.
Hmm.
So it gives me a lot of perspective on that. And also, I just love learning languages. I'm currently working on my French and Spanish, which I haven't become fluent in either of those because I am focusing on two, which may not be the best option. I just cannot decide. But I just love speaking and listening to different languages. I don't know how common that is, but
Hey, you're trying to
I
expand your
enjoy it a
horizon.
lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I learned English like by just watching videos and speaking it.
Hmm.
So my way of learning French and Spanish is like, okay, let's get myself there and let's try to get away with whatever French or Spanish I have. And after a while, you start learning more. It's kind of like if you, when you, people say like when you move to a new place, you learn the language so much quicker. Well, I moved there for like 3 days out of a month. But if I go there often enough, maybe
Yeah,
I'll
you'll
get
learn it.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you'll
and
definitely learn
then
it.
I compliment that. I listen to podcasts in those languages, so
Good for you.
I'll
That's
eventually get there.
yeah, no,
It's
yeah,
about
you
the journey, not
exactly.
the
It's about the journey,
destination.
not the destination. Well, Sylvia, I appreciate you coming on. This has been really insightful. Thanks so much for your
Yeah,
time. Where if
thanks for
listeners
having
do,
me.
yeah, absolutely. If listeners do want to learn more about you around social media management, anything else you're doing, where can they find you?
Yeah, so where I'm probably most active is on Instagram, but I also post on YouTube and TikTok, though that last one is in Portuguese. So
You
unless
want,
you maybe you want to learn
yeah,
Portuguese, that can
exactly.
be a good resource. But they're all at freelancing with Sylvia, and Sylvia is Silvia, so it doesn't have a Y. Um, that's mostly where I hang out, but I mostly do Instagram. That's kind of my guilty pleasure.
Very cool. Well, I'll make sure to share those in the show notes. And again, I really appreciate you coming on. For listeners, if you've been an avid listener of the podcast, if you're a new listener that follows Sylvia, feel free to check out other episodes. We have some exciting other episodes coming up, and make sure to give us a 5-star review if you think we deserve it. That helps us reach more people. And if you
I
want to
may
share
need
it
to
with
go
it,
and do that
I
and
appreciate.
listen to the
Yeah.
previous episode.
There you go. That's why I do the reminder.
That
But
message is for me as well.
yeah. That's good. Now when I do that at the end, I'll remind the guest of the show. But yeah,
Yeah.
doing those things, and yeah, share it with a friend or family member who wants to travel more. That's our goal, is to get people traveling more, especially here in the new year of 2025. So we'll catch you next week. Thanks again, Sylvia, and thanks again for
Thank you.
tuning in to our listeners.